On the VR Report, I sit down with James Jensen, the founder and CEO of Jump by Limitless Flight. James co founded The Void, which was one of the first VR arcades mixing physical sensation with modern VR headsets. They had killer experiences based on IP that people wanted to actually embody. You could be a Ghostbuster or live in the Star Wars universe. It was truly groundbreaking. We talk about James's origin story, growing up on a farm to then becoming a tech entrepreneur, and his philosophy on how VR can change the human psyche and even the world. James is now launching Jump, which allows people to fly. Friends, here's James Jensen.
The VR Report podcast with David Gino.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is David O from the VR Report, and I have a very special guest, James Jensen. James, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hey, I'm James Jensen. I'm the creator and founder of a company called Jump, which is a virtual reality wingsuit base jumping company. Location-based entertainment has been my passion. My last company was The Void. It's a walking virtual reality simulation company. So that's me.
Fantastic. James, we met, nearly a decade ago when I was at Leap Motion and you were at The Void, and I was helping you integrate hand tracking, and I learned so much from you because it was such the early days of VR, and you had this big ambition of bringing VR to the masses through a VR arcade. But before jumping into it, you also shared with me your extraordinary background, especially your childhood experiences and learning how to paint and transitioning from an artist and into technology. Can you kind of share some of your origin story?
Yeah, it was amazing. I grew up. I have four brothers. I have two older brothers and two younger brothers. So I'm the middle messed up child. But I don't think so. I thought it was great to be the middle child. But we grew up on a farm out in Oregon, and that was an amazing experience. But our bus stop was a couple miles away, and then we were another 20 minutes to school, and so we'd ride our motorcycles to the bus stop. But it was pretty amazing. My grandparents were the suppliers for Wrigley's for all of their mint. My father actually didn't mine, or he didn't farm mint plants. He actually farmed sugar beets and corn along with his dad. So, but we lived on a pretty big farm. It was great. But what I learned from my dad a lot is, what it takes to own a business. I didn't understand at a young age, what that meant. But betting the farm is a very real thing. Like they bet the farm every year and buy all the seeds and new equipment required to farm all of that, and then they hope to have a good crop, and then they make a lot of money at the end of the year. And through that process of being on a farm, my parents actually lost their farm when I was young, and then we moved to the city here in Utah when I was about 12 for the last time. And looking back on that and my father's experience going through that, his end goal wasn't actually to farm. He wanted to turn the farm that we owned in Oregon into a resort where people could fly in. It's the river that goes in front of the farm is actually famous for brown trout fishing, world famous. People would come there all the time, and so he wanted to turn it into a resort. So he had plans for doing all that, and I got to see him do that and draw it all out on the board and his vision behind all of that. But yeah, both of my parents have been very inspirational for me in my life. My mom always pushed me to be creative and to lean into that, and I did. And so yeah, the being a farmer was fun, but I'm glad that we moved to the city finally, and I got open to more opportunities because I don't think I wanted to be a farmer.
Yeah, it's a hard life. That's pretty interesting. I think there might even be a correlation maybe with your dad figuring out like, hey, what do we do with this property and make it entertaining and make it more than just a farm? And was that kind of like an early influence because you also was focused on building an amusement park in Utah? Do you think there's some correlation there, or is that a stretch?
Yeah, of course. It was fun to see my dad want to reach further and to make something new and different. Oregon is all farmer town. There isn't anything like that out there. But what was unique about our farm is it was just nestled in this nice area where there was mountains on the back, and then a really beautiful river that ran from the Hawaii Reservoir out in front of the farm. So it was kind of this beautiful place. And on the farm, it also had hot springs. And so there was all these, and so we made the hot springs into this place where you'd go and like you'd go to these natural hot springs. So I think it was cool to see him evolve his idea of like, hey, I don't really like, I mean, he liked doing farming, but he did that his whole life and he wanted to do something more. And he would always have, he would have dentists and doctors come and pay to go onto his property to go pheasant hunting. And so I think it is cool to see him just kind of evolve. And I remember him bringing out a big board and he drew out the whole farm on it and where the landing strip would be and where the, where the shacks or cabins would be in the back and where these houses would be up in the river. And it was, I think, just seeing his vision of that. He was also a painter, so he was an oil painter, and he taught me how to oil paint when I was really young. And that's where I got really into the artist kind of side of what I do, the art
That's
side.
fantastic. Yeah, I can see how
definitely
the
influenced it.
artist.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking over you. Yeah, I can totally see, that artistic vision fall through in terms of who you are today. What was that pivotal moment that you experienced that led you to transition from a traditional art background to technology?
I mean, funny enough, it's the undo button. Like traditional art is hard, and when you make a mistake, you got to cover up the mistake. And I got introduced to computers when it was my senior year of high school. It's kind of funny. Like I grew up without computers. The last generation of that. Yeah, senior year in high school, my uncle flew me out to DC for my senior trip because he likes to do that for some of his nephews. And he flew me out there and showed me computers and showed me, my first one was the Mac Gray Tower thing. Do you remember that thing? That was my first.
Yeah,
I learned how to design on that and paint with pixels, and I fell in love with it. It was awesome. Like I could iterate, I could make new designs, I could undo the stuff that I was trying. It was awesome. I loved it. That was kind of like the change. And he sent me home with that computer and some software, and I kind of went from there. But I never lost track of traditional art. I mean, I have an oil painting in here that I did of the jump helmet and stuff like that. So I still hang on to that. I just don't like doing that as a business. Eventually, I envision myself at the end of the day being on some kind of balcony where there's the ocean and I'm painting. I see this very visually, and I'm painting as an old man on this balcony. And when I get to that point, I'll know that I did all of the things I want to do in reality.
that's an awesome dream. I love that. And then how has that transitioning happened to get to the void? Because I know that you and your ex-partners were working on an amusement park. How did that even come about?
Yeah, so I had created a company through my journey. I worked for different design firms and interactive media firms, and then I created my own company called Sandman Studios, which did visual effects for film and video. We also did websites and video games or online games in Flash. But through that process, I was on set a lot, and because we were doing all the visual effects, so we had one of the movies that we worked on was called Red Riding Hood. It was Red Riding Hood, has Joey Fatone in it. It's kind of a B movie, but had a lot of CG effects. And one of the things that we did in that movie that was new was we were using a process called an Kodacam, which was the first version of attaching a tracker to a camera and saving all the telemetry data of the camera in real time, and then showing a 3D composite of a virtual set on the green screen at the same time. So then the director could pick like shots from a virtual set because he could see what it would look like. So we were doing that, and I was seeing us map virtual objects to physical objects that the actors were touching, and I was like, man, I really would love to be inside the computer. Like, it would be really fun. And I looked into virtual reality and built some concepts around doing a virtual space mapped over a physical set from that project. And it was like 17 years from when I had that idea, from when it actually came into reality. And I put together the pitch to take to Universal or somebody in the entertainment world that was doing theme park work, and I could never get the right contacts over those 17 years. And then finally in Utah, Ken Bretschneider and Curtis Hickman were putting together a theme park called Evermore. and I saw their video about their creative process through, I think I was on LinkedIn. I was like, I need to be a part of this. I gotta help them with something, and maybe I could talk to them about this idea I've had forever. And if I could get it into a theme park, then people would understand how amazing it is. I mean, it's an experience that never gets old, and you can change it, just digital content. And I followed their video and then reached out to Curtis and said, hey, I'm working in this field and I'd love to be able to help you with your guys' project. And so initially with their project, I started doing previs, which is you do pre-visualization of the park so people can see what it looks like and think investors can be part of it. And through that process, they asked me if I had any attraction ideas. And I was like, well, a virtual existence over a physical set. And Ken Bretch and I was like, can you really do that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. The tech exists. Like we can make it happen. And so from that point, he gave me kind of the first seed round of what we eventually called the Void, to build a theme park attraction of this thing of mapping virtual. And we built that over 3 months. And it included hand tracking and everything, which was really cool. Came to you with lots of problems. You solved them, right?
That's right. Thanks. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, the transition that was, going through from fine arts to owning my own creative agency and doing film and video to eventually doing virtual reality and introducing physical effects into that.
Cool. Jumping into the Void, I mean, it was a really unique experience because you really brought a sense of presence, even with physicality, of being able to change the physical environment while you're in a VR headset. As you had mentioned, you had all the bells and whistles. You had hand tracking. You had a full PC that was rigged to your back. So you had power on the go. You also designed your own headset. And I was just amazed, like you were able to do so much in a short amount of time. What was your secret to get the Void off the ground? Because it almost seemed like there was this awesome sizzle video that got everyone excited, especially in the VR industry. And then you started making announcements, through social about some of the prototypes that you were building. And then boom, it was already out. Like, can you kind of walk people through what the Void's, secret sauce was to be able to accomplish so much at such an early time?
Well, I'm outside. We had a pretty clear vision of what we wanted to do. And Ken Bretschneider, hats off to him. Like that guy is just fearless when it comes to just developing things. And he was willing to go, wherever we needed to go to get it done. My original idea was like use a lot of off-the-shelf components to build what we needed to do, which we did in the very beginning. I mean, we used a DK2 and a laptop that we strapped to a hiking backpack, which was the prototype. And but very quickly we realized, hey, there wasn't the power requirements that we needed to take this thing further. There wasn't a computer that would support a mobile computer that would support this with a battery system that would work. Laptops, even though they have really great video cards in them or graphic cards in them, when they get unplugged, then they don't work as well. So they need constant power. And back then, you unplug a laptop and it cuts the GPU in half at best, while it's just on battery power. And so we needed full power, and so we had to develop our own. We had to develop our own computer that would just run like it was plugged into the wall. It was cool. We worked with NVIDIA through that process and built our little box that worked. And our own battery system, we built a ton of stuff when it came to that. But the secret sauce is just the team. And a lot of people have come to me and said, hey, if you ever created the Void in Silicon Valley, it would have never happened because everybody would have told you it was impossible. maybe being in Utah with our developers, we were a little naive or something, or we just didn't know, and we just went for it. And it was awesome. It was also at a time where there was a lot of VR hype, and there was a lot of VR hype, but there wasn't really a product that was delivering the vision, except for the Void. Like we delivered on our promise, and we took people's expectations and then we crushed them, right? Like they came to the Void, and it was just something way bigger than they thought it was going to be. So I think that was good timing for us. We kind of rode this little wave of VR, and we were the ones that were delivering on the promise.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the Void actually brought you an experience where you're fighting aliens. You brought in some of those jump scares of actually being on a ledge, a virtual ledge, and you played with that perception of the environment. You then were able to get the Ghostbusters license, which is pretty awesome because you would fry the marshmallow guy, but then you would have a heat that would be, you know, blasting on you, so you can actually feel the flames as it would erupt. It was really innovative, and just like you had said, it probably would never have happened in Silicon Valley because you moved very quickly. You had to figure things out on your own. I don't think you got a lot of approval for a lot of stuff. You're just like, hey, let's just see what we can build and see what we can do. Can you
Yep.
kind of explain what that whole process was?
I mean, I have pictures of me tearing apart like $5,000 laptops to fit them in different cases. Like the process, like we know what we want. We want to be able to walk around untethered in an environment that is giving us feedback in real time. That was the vision, and so we really tried to set out to accomplish that, and I think we did in a big way. Unexpectedly, we were doing things for entertainment's sake, and I ended up further down the project realizing that we had created something completely different than just virtual reality. That's why we started calling it hyper reality, because virtual reality is really defined as, you know, right now it's defined as a headset that has visuals and audios, and you're standing in your kitchen doing something or your living room, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
where with what we did with the void, we were introducing, like you said, heat and smell and vibration and physical senses and walls and all of these things, and we were doing it for entertainment's sake because we thought it would be fun. And what I found through the process is it did something completely different to the individual. It allowed them to be hyper present and in the moment because they had enough physical sensation synchronized with the visuals that it made it feel like it was real. And so we were tapping into the mind a different way. We were creating memories similar to what you create in reality because there was enough evidence that it was real, which is kind of wild when you think about it. When you watch a movie, you're separated from the movie, right? Like you have a memory of being there with somebody, maybe feeling something about the movie or what happened in the movie, but not it not happening to you. And virtual reality gets you closer to that, but you still feel like you're separated because there's things in the environment that are still reminding you that you're not there. There's the cat that does the thing, or there's smell in the kitchen of new brownies or something that doesn't match up with the experience, right? And so you're kind of disconnected still. So you're separated, even though you're in virtual reality. When you do hyper reality and everything is telling you that you are there, that's different. Then you just feel like you just took a trip to Hawaii, or you went to on vacation, or you're actually wingsuit base jumping. You know what I mean? Like, or you're actually fighting Darth Vader. Like everything is telling you are there, and so that was a huge step, and I think it's still overlooked today by many on how impactful it is to have physical sensations connected to the virtual experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And at this time, for those who don't know, these were the early days in VR. There, you can even find developers that knew how to actually, work on this technology. So that's how early this was. And being able to have this hyper reality that you created, like you had mentioned, being able to smell like marshmallows as you're burning down the marshmallow man and feeling the heat, that was wild. And not only that, you were also placed at Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. So you just even getting that location and having a VR experience. These are the early days in VR. People in the industry are like, what are these guys doing? This is awesome. This is so historic. So that was so cool. Now let's move over to Jump, because I haven't spoken since you started Jump, Limitless Flight. I love that sweatshirt. You always had the best swag. Tell me about Jump. Let's start from the beginning. How it was started, what was the vision, and where it is today.
Yeah, honestly, the jump kind of started when I was at the Void because I wanted to create new products. I want, we had nailed walking around with your buddies and fighting Darth Vader. Like, how do we do flying? And flying gives you all kinds of opportunities. Like, you could eventually be Superman or Batman jumping off the tower in Gotham City. So it just felt like a natural progression of where I wanted to go, and started concepting things early on in 2016 about this idea of flying. And it wasn't really until I left the Void that I really kind of started focusing on it heavily. But I did remember bringing in GoPro, and we went and did a Void experience, and then I showed them kind of what I wanted to do for flying. Like, you guys, we should do this together. And there was a point where they were interested, things were going along, and then it just kind of fell apart. But after I left the Void, I carved that idea out of my agreement that it would be non-competitive, and and I wanted to go tackle this new idea. And the reason why I wanted to go tackle it is kind of fun because, back to my earlier comment about I found something new in the void that was unexpected, was this hyper present moment that a person was in inside of the experience was really awesome. I mean, I would see people after they did the void say that wasn't even virtual reality, and they would like sit down for a minute and be like, I don't even know what just happened to me. And it was really kind of special because people would have that moment for a couple of minutes after the experience, maybe even a half hour, 2 hours, where they were just fascinated with reality again. They were like little kids. We had this saying that adults went in one side and kids came out the other side, because it kind of made everything in reality fascinating again, which was really cool. And so I wanted to take advantage of that moment and really emphasize how hyper reality was helping a person be hyper present in the moment. And what we're discovering at Jump is it puts you into a flow state, so a high performing state where your mind is kind of open to all possibilities, which is super cool. And so after the experience, I want to take not only make an experience that would kind of create that moment for a person, but also a post experience that would take advantage of that reflection period of, hey, I just did this amazing thing, and what does that mean to me in my life? And so that's kind of where Jump came from. Also, it helped that my buddy was a professional wingsuit base jumper, and I always wanted to do what he does. And
what was the actual creative process? Because of course, you don't jump into a wingsuit and have to know that feeling. Do your designers get to be in the suit? Are you just reviewing tons of footage? How do you get that authenticity? What is that creative process?
Right. So, I mean, this started early on with me talking to Marshall Miller, he's my buddy that's a pro wingsuit base jumper. And I said, well, what are the things that make wingsuit base jumping so awesome, and how does it feel this way? And so early on, I knew that I needed to have an advisor that knew what it felt like to wingsuit base jump, because I was never going to do it. And I was on a mission to make this thing as realistic as possible, completely authentic. I want this to be just like what you experienced, Marshall, because I don't want to risk my life. And so, early on, we had them as advisors. And so they came in and through the whole process, got us there. And I talked to them about how we needed to create the simulation so it would allow it to have some natural movement in the simulation. Also be able to take a person from a standing position to a horizontal position, so they're flying, and then back to a vertical position and parachute and land. Because I didn't want to have I want people to see the technology. I don't want to see the magic trick. I just want them to believe that they're on a 5,000 foot cliff and they're about to jump off of it. And so we don't show you any of that right now. And so that whole process of going through that, I use one of these, the creative process that I use is I imagine going in the future and experiencing my product, and then I come back and I write a customer review on it. And
that's awesome.
That with you. I wrote a customer review on Jump in 2016. I wrote this, and I went forward in the future and I experienced Jump and everything, and how I got introduced to it through Facebook and all these things. And I went with my buddy, and at the end we bought a t-shirt and we booked our next experience because it was so cool. So that really is helpful. And for others out there, I didn't realize that other people did this. Nikola Tesla did this. He didn't write stories, but he would go to the future and experience his product, and then he would come back and then draw pictures of what it would look like. And so I didn't find that out until after. But that's kind of my creative process is writing customer reviews of what I experience, and that works as like this document for how the product's created and how the brand should be represented and the whole thing and how the whole experience should work. And it was really helpful for that process to give that customer view and that story to Marshall, the wingsuit pilots, and then also my engineers to kind of guide them on the overall scope of what it needed to be at the end of the day. And I would say we are super close to that vision being completely realized. We're probably 93% of the way there from what I wrote in 2016. So I'm happy to say that.
That's fantastic. I really love that aspect of being able to write your own customer reviews and then embody those. I didn't hear about Nikola Tesla actually projecting himself to the future. That's also something fascinating.
Yeah.
I know that Jeff Bezos does that with press releases. He'll actually sit down and have people write about specific new product features or releases as a press release. So I can see why it also give you focus, especially as a product owner. You worked in VR for such a long time, James. What are some of the biggest technical innovations that you were a part of?
I mean, some of the biggest ones were, I think the backtop computer. We called it a backtop computer when we created that thing. It didn't exist, and we talked to several companies about helping us build that, and some of them made their own backtop computers for that. But I feel like some of that technology is too early on. They got excited and they started building, and they realized people wouldn't buy them. It just gets too far, outside of the niche use case for what we were doing. I think they anticipated people buying them for their homes, and that didn't end up so well for them. But the backtop computer is amazing. But I think what I'm leading the charge on in innovation is the synchronization of virtual reality with physical effects with intention. So not only just with physical effects, but what are the physical and psychological impacts to associating a very realistic experience to you? Your mind doesn't know the difference between physical reality and what it imagines or what it's experiencing. And so what are the effects that has on the human psyche and physiology of a person? I think there's a lot of potential there. And so outside of entertainment, I think we're moving into a new realm of potentially digital medicine. We have one of the foremost digital medicine board advisors, Adam Ghazali from SSFCU. No.
Yeah, he created the digital brain. The actual, he mapped out the whole neurons. Yeah, he's fascinating.
And he had a FDA approved app for kids for ADHD that uses AI and algorithms to help children with ADHD, which was the first FDA approved digital medicine, and that was just a few years ago. And so it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens. Our guests that are coming out to Jump, even though we aren't doing our scientific study on flow state yet, which we will be doing, we're already seeing anecdotally people that come out to Jump have come back to us and said, hey, for some reason, ever since my Jump experience, I don't have as much stress or anxiety anymore when I get in these certain situations. I remember my Jump experience and that I could do that and I can do this easily. And so I think that has been really encouraging for us when we look at what our overall objectives are in achieving this. We'll get a bunch of scientific data that shows that the things that we're doing are beneficial and have predictable outcomes over time. But I think it's fun to start seeing that right now. Like that's happening now in our research facility here, and we just want to make that more readily available for everyone on the planet. So we'll get more locations as soon as possible.
That's super cool. Can you talk a little bit more about your research centers?
So Utah is going to be the home for our research. Here in Bluffdale, Utah, we're going to do, if you go to our website, limitlessflight.com, you can look under About, and then I think under Research, and you'll see our research team, and we're going to do a research project, which actually we got a grant for, that will probably happen next year. It'll be 500 participants, and we'll be studying the flow state. So we'll be in what our PI, our primary investigator, calls it. His name's Richard Husky from UC Davis. He calls it this dose of flow. And what they've done in labs right now, where they've given like really simple versions of a dose of flow, which is done through, they're in like an MRI scanner and they're playing a video game, and they get to this flow state, but it's a really small dose of flow. And he said Jump is like this hammer of flow. It's like this is massive.
I love that.
You're completely hyper present. You're there, right? And so what we'll be studying is like what this big dose of flow does for an individual. Like how does it change? Does it change them for? What are the effects of it over a day? What are the effects over a month, 2 months, 2 weeks? And then we'll have basically our dose of flow is the typical Jump experience, which helps you do a good job and you fly and you see success. And the control of that is it's very hard to fly, or it's completely on rails and you have no choice where you're flying. And so that it's going to be really fun to see see that result. But I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is prove that Jump is creating a flow state in a controlled environment. And once we can create this flow state in a controlled environment, then we can start manipulating variables and then looking at predictable outcomes. So we can say, we want to build a simulation that after five sessions of it, it eliminates stress or anxiety or depression or PTSD or whatever. And I think that's going to be our path towards that. And so we'll be using, EEGs and heart rate monitors. We're already using some of that stuff, but we'll be on those studies. We'll be using a lot more deliberate equipment to measure things in experience before and after.
Tell me what you think about the metaverse.
I think it's funny with the metaverse. Everybody got hyped about it real quick, and then you have all these negative people come out and say, well, everybody's going to get lost in the metaverse and they're not going to even talk to each other anymore, and it's all going to be virtual reality and no physical. And I just don't buy into that. From what I'm seeing, I don't see virtual reality as escapism. It is in a way, but it would be the same as me saying, I go to the gym and I'm going to stay at the gym for the rest of my life. When I look at virtual reality and hyper reality simulations are to amplify my physical reality. I go to the gym to work out and to build a body so I can have a better life. I don't go to the gym to live at the gym. And I think you're going to see this huge shift once it gets to more meaningful content, where I go to virtual reality to get a different perspective on a certain thing that's happening, or to be more creative, to come back and be more creative, or to have less stress or anxiety so I can be open to more possibilities. That's what hyper reality and virtual reality are going to unlock for people. And when that happens, I think you're going to see a massive shift. And so I think buying it, people will escape into the metaverse for entertainment's sake, but I think what will win at the end of the day is the benefits that you get from it. I'm spending $1,000 for a phone now. Like, who thought we were going to be spending $1,000 for a phone? But there's massive benefits for this. It speeds up my life. It helps me with all kinds of things. And so once you start making that shift to something that's meaningful for the individual, then it really picks up fast. And so I like looking at the metaverse as not like this escapism place and negativity of being separated from humanity, but I see it as being a nice gym of the future, a gym for your mind.
Is that something that you really believe in, that technology can help us as humans to actually evolve? Is that your thesis?
Absolutely. If you look at and just do a little bit of research on education, and the highest retention rates are experience-driven education. So that if you look at what that is for Jump, you are in a flow state, in a heightened emotional state, at the very peak level of making decisions and recording decision-making patterns inside of that. And so in a hyper reality situation, you are effectively talking to the unconscious or the person without any walls or barriers, because they're completely open to anything and all possibilities. And so be able to create an experience that's pivotal for an individual to shift their perspective in a hyper reality system, I think is completely and totally possible. Because the future is made up and the past is a shady version of it, right? Like, our minds make up stuff all the time. And we don't know that if it was a realistic dream or if it was reality sometimes. And if we all believe that we are the equivalent of the experiences we've had to date in our lives that have created our perception of reality, then I see hyper reality just being a way for us to have experiences that shift our perception of reality quicker. So instead of having to spend half of my life learning how to wingsuit base jump, to have this life-altering experience of being connected and flying and being hyper-present, I can now just do that on a weekend, and I can have that experience that could shift my perspective. So we talk about fear and limiting beliefs, and Jump acts as this perfect analogy of fear as an illusion. Most people that are experiencing fear in their life, that have stress and anxiety and depression, they're all creating this future thing that they think is going to happen. And they stress out about it in the moment, and they worry about it in the moment, and they depress about it in the moment. They just spin on it, and that's what creates the situation. And so far, we have been applying medication and suppressing those emotions. Well, what if you could have an experience that would allow you to reframe those emotions to be something positive. And that's what I think jump does, is when you step up to the edge, you get to experience fear, and you get to experience fear in a safe environment. And I tell people, when they step up to the edge of jump and you experience the sensation of fear, remember that it's an illusion and jump past it and see success. And I think our hypothesis is, by having an experience like that, you could reframe the mind to not only be okay with fear, but be excited about it and to see success. And that is one of the biggest things that separates an average person from a high performer, is their ability to deal with fear. In entrepreneurship and professional sports, when they visualize and they see success, they usually succeed. You know, when a guy, I always say, like, when these guys get up on these super ramps and they're going to do a triple backflip with a twist, like, they don't back down. When a wingsuit guy steps up to the edge of a cliff, they don't visualize smashing into the cliff. They get excited about the potential of succeeding and having an amazing time, and it propels them to go forward and see that success. And I think that can be tapped into with what we're doing. And that's the charge that I want to lead.
I love that analogy. I really do believe VR can be that silver bullet for humanity. Is that something that you feel that is part of your legacy and your vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my passion around that, and it's right on my website. I have a quote from me that says, "The purpose of virtual reality is to discover our full potential and find our true self." And I think that's because, you know, when I'm an old man and I'm 80 years old, you know, traditionally I'm going to be the equivalent of my experiences, right? So I only have 80 years to do that, where I could shift my perception. With hyper reality experiences, I'm thinking about my grandkids. They could have lifetimes of experiences that could create these massive shifts in their perception of reality very quickly. I'm putting 10 to 12-year-olds into a wingsuit base jumping proximity flying experience that they couldn't do if they physically wanted to until they were about 30. They would have to first be 18 to tandem jump, and they'd have to tandem jump a bunch, and they have to do about 500 skydives and spend about $30,000 and risk their life 500 times before they can put on a wingsuit and go do this thing, right? So I'm shortcutting what would take, you know, 10 years, you know, if you were really devoted, down to, you know, a weekend, 5 sessions, 6 sessions, where you can have these massive learnings. And so I think that's the biggest potential that I see, is you're having, you know, lifetimes of experiences in one single lifetime and shifting your perception really quickly. It's going to be a massive education system.
That's fantastic. Do you take that philosophy and into entrepreneurship? What advice do you have for early founders or new founders in XR? What advice can you give them?
I mean, the best advice that I can give people when they're looking at building businesses, especially in virtual reality, is creating a minimal viable product as fast as possible. MVP, MVP. If you guys haven't heard that, that's what you need to do in order to raise money and to be able to convince people that your idea is something. You know, you can write a paper about it, and you can make some drawings of what you want to do, but if you can show somebody even a small vision of what you want to achieve, then it buys you. I mean, the minimal viable product for Jump was a standard VR headset, and I would let people step up to the edge of a cliff and look off of it, and I would say, imagine being able to jump off of that cliff and fly. That was it. And I would take this to, you know, I'd take this to meetings, I would take it to conferences, and I would have people step up to the edge. And scary enough, I had a couple people try to jump off. My PR agent early on, she was in a long dress and high heels, and she jumped and fell flat on her face.
Oof, oof.
If you don't mind me, like, just kind of going to the side on that story, it was incredible, and it completely blew me away. And if you look up Frankie or the plank, that experience, completely, if you have anybody in VR has ever had that experience, they know what it is. You like go up an elevator and you walk out on a plank, and then you look at this cartoon city. And if you look up the plank VR fails, you will see tons of people jumping through their wall, through their TV, through into their Christmas tree. And it's funny to watch. But if you think about what is happening, my PR agent put on the headset, and I said, step up to the edge. And I was about to say, look off. And she said, and jump and she jumped in high heels and flew and fell onto her face. So, and we were in a place, it was just a VR headset. There was no flying thing or anything. We were in the side of this restaurant. And I flew home after that experience. I was like, what is going on? And this just proves my point of what the system really is for. In just a few seconds, she put on the headset and she believed that she was there and she believed that she could fly and she trusted it and she jumped. So what kind of belief system is that? We don't have another belief system like that. Like take me to a place where you can have a person's 100% attention in hyper reality and be able to teach them something. Like it just doesn't exist. Like even if you go to a convention and you're talking to Tony Robbins or something, you're still slightly disconnected because your phone's doing a thing. You're talking about this and this other meeting you gotta go do, right? You're not present. And within a few seconds, you can have a person be completely present and to be able to teach them something. And I think that was massive learnings for me.
Why do you think for humans we're wired that way, James?
We are creative beings and we crave experience. Like look what you do every single day. Every single day you wake up, you're trying to find an experience that validates your reality and then also shifts your perception of reality. I think that's just what, I always felt like we were kind of cheating, not to get too spiritual, but the void, if this sounds familiar to you, the void experience is I'm outside of this world and I'm looking at this world that I want to go visit, and we're going to put on this equipment and we're going to go visit this world and we're going to interact with the people down there and we're going to do cool things, and then we're going to come back and we're going to shed that equipment and then we're going to talk about our experience. So I felt like that resonates a lot with people that are trying to figure out what reality is in a religious aspect, as well as even a scientific aspect. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing these things? And what are we trying to learn? And hyper reality is this way of having multiple experiences in a very quick time. And I think that resonates with everybody at a core level. So I think it's just human beings want to be in this dream space. And if you look at some of these other experiences like the void or even Richie's plank as an example, as a dream state, why do people want to fly? Because they've had dreams of flying all of the time. It's one of the most typical dreams that a person has, is a dream of flying. And it's just built into us to have those kind of experiences. We want to find out what our full potential is, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's maybe even part of our mission in life. I always ask this: what are your predictions in the short term and in the long term for XR?
My predictions, at least if I have my way, which I'm hoping I'm leading the charge on this, is I think we are going to see a massive shift from, the VR is, I think it's so early on. And the reason why I feel like it's early on is because everybody's in this play box of like VR is a video game and you're inside of an entertainment world. And so then it separates all these other people that don't like video games or don't like VR, right? I think over the next couple of years, and hopefully Jump leads this charge, we'll see VR take this position of, oh, there's actually something here other than just entertainment. There's something that is beneficial for me, that helps my life. I'm not just going in to fight zombies and with my buddies. Like, I can go into VR and amplify my life and shift my perception. And I think that's where you'll see massive adoption for virtual reality. So my prediction is, and I feel like that's going to be mostly driven from location-based virtual reality, because we have a lot more at our disposal. We have sensors and equipment and expensive things that we can put on people, and we can understand how people interpret realities and how they respond to certain situations a lot quicker than a VR headset in somebody's living room. So yeah,
That's
that's going to be a
awesome.
cool evolution.
What are the next steps for Limitless?
Limitless Flight, we have our a kind of showcase piece here in Utah. We don't really have a completely open to the public location yet. We do open our facility, our corporate office here for just a few hours in the evening and on the weekends, mostly to learn and to understand how to increase and make the experience better. But 2024 and on is just about building our first locations and making it available for everyone. We have a really fast and aggressive expansion plan that we want to achieve, and we want to get this out there so everybody can start experiencing what Jump is all about and living their dreams.
I'll be one of the first to buy a ticket. James, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy, and I appreciate the time that you spent with me today.
Yeah, this has been really fun. So I appreciate you having me on, and always reach out. We seem to come back together for important things on technology. So I'm sure you'll be reaching out again.
Fantastic. Where can people find you, James?
Yeah, you can go to our website, limitlessflight.com, and you can see Jump and our locations and news. We post on our blog on there quite a bit, and our social media tags are Jump By Limitless Flight or Jump By Limitless Flight. You can find us on those tags too on all the social media accounts.
Thanks so much, James.
Yeah, thanks, David. See ya.
Bye.